of Subdream Studios. We've actually been coming to this conference a few times, and we're really happy to introduce a blockchain company that we are doing for VR arcades. So a little bit about the company and about myself. If I guess I'm clicking it myself, going over here. Sure. Okay, so this is going to be the short little outline. I'm going to give a quick overview of Subdream Studios, just in case if you don't know about the company. Since our last time talking here, we acquired also VR Plus, a VR arcade company in Korea. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that, and then how the blockchain can really help VR arcades and just the gaming spectrum as a whole. So next slide, please. So a little bit about me. I'm a Georgia Tech alumni. If you want to have a fun fact, Jeremy alumni, and that's how I met him. And then after then, I was able to go over and become the game director at Virtual World Arcade, which does this lovely conference for you people. While there, I worked on two projects, Prison Break and SciComm. My claim to fame is pretty much the narrator in Prison Break. So if you go over there and you hear that voice, yeah, that's me. In case you were like, oh, that voice sounds familiar. Then after that, I left to do some contract work at Subdream Studios with a game, little known game. Not many people know the IP, Galaga, by Bandai Namco. Yeah, we worked on that, and shortly after that work, I became CTO and CGO of Subdream Labs, which creates the Eumerium blockchain. What is CGO? Chief Gaming Officer. So pretty much I'm more of the game area publishing and development side, while our CTO is more blockchain, cryptocurrency, and all that fun stuff. So a little bit about the timeline of Subdream Studios and Eumerium and everything. Subdream Studios actually started out a year before its incorporation with Kalopl, a Japanese company. From there, Kalopl wanted to make a US branch, and they called it Kalopl Ni. If you know Japanese, Ni is two, so they just literally named their company Company 2. And they released 3 games, one of which was Cyberpunk VR, which is was very popular. In January 2017, the CEO, Jikan Jung, decided to split the company away from Kalopl and create Subdream Studios. And since then, in October 2017, we released 4 games. 3 of them were developed in-house, and 1 of them was published by Subdream Studios. The published one is Hell Dimension VR. The other ones were developed by us. If you guys have any more questions, you can ask more about that, but just to keep it short, we're going to skip through that. We got then the Subdream Studios buys VR Plus, huge Korean free art franchise. In fact, it's the biggest and first VR arcade franchise in Korea. And then in March 2018, we released Galaga Fever in VR Zone Shinjuku. It's a big arcade in Japan. If you haven't heard of it, it's huge, really successful so far. So we released the game there. April 2018, we really announced Eumerium blockchain and its features and everything. And our token sales are going to go public in May of this year. So if you're interested in that, you can check out eumerium.com, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. So a little bit going a bit further for the studio in case you're more interested in the game development and studio side. Next slide. So Subdream Studios actually partially owns 3 companies: VR Plus, Eumerium, and Exalabs. Exalabs is a cryptocurrency exchange company, so they have some ownership in Eumerium, and we have some ownership in Exalabs, and they're partnering with us to bring Eumerium to the blockchain. And we have multiple investors. We're part of the Vivex Accelerator program and all that stuff. Next slide, please. So Galaga Fever. It was released in March 2018, VR Zone Shinjuku. That is a proprietary VR arcade. So they contracted us to make this game for bare profit. So the business model for this one is that we were just planning to break even for this game and then have a revenue share so that way we have some stakes in how well the game does. And not only that, we wanted to have a good partnership with them, so we gave them a pretty good deal. And that's what we started out. It uses proprietary hardware, so this is one of those. This is not going to be in Steam anytime soon because it actually uses this. I have a laser pointer. This floor system right here. The floor vibrates. There's air fans right there that shoot at you. You have a lot of haptics, and in the game, actually, if you notice that they're really high above the city, you actually start the game by stepping into an elevator, and then this doctor shoots you up into the air, where you have to fight off all these Galaga, and like the giant Galaga comes at you and it's attacking you. And the more that they destroy the elevator, the more it gets broken. So the more you have this fear of falling off. Oh shoot! Oh, it worked now. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So VR Arcade, the VR Plus Arcade. Next slide. So as I mentioned, it's the first and biggest VR franchise in Korea. We have over 30 locations around all of Korea, Seoul, Gangnam, everywhere. We've actually seen a really good revenue increasing, and we didn't open all 30 locations at once. We actually gradually grew, so it's been actually a pretty successful venture for the VR Plus and for us to own it. And so their business models, they have two business models. One business model is the pay-per-play model. So pretty much it's like an arcade cabinet where you put in money, you play the VR for one until you lose and you get out. This is especially helpful with very experienced and hardware-tied games. So any game that has like a full like driving and steering, any game that has something that the throughput isn't as high, then we have this type of model. And then VR room rentals, kind of like karaoke, but instead of having a karaoke, you actually have a Steam VR or whatever system it's being used to play games for an hour at a time or 2 hours for parties and all that. So a lot of questions that we got asked when we decided to buy VR Plus was, why are we buying this company? And for us, it would give us an opportunity to experience every step of VR game development. So we already had the development experience since we had done a few games. We got the publishing experience when we worked with Third Door Studios to make Hell Dimension. And now this would give us an opportunity to have a distribution experience. So have a little bit more in the game of where are our games actually going to be played and how are people interacting with our games. Not only that, it gave us a really nice opportunity to be in a good place to start the blockchain company, which we will talk about right now. So blockchain is one of those words that everybody has right now like, oh, nice, that's cool, I want to know blockchain, but not many people know the blockchain. I'm not here to explain what the blockchain, I'm here more to explain the application for us and our VR arcades and games in general with the blockchain. So next slide. So a few current problems with what we're trying to solve and what we're really interested in is, how do we make VR developers or game developers as a whole be able to more quickly get money and get bigger cut of the money so that they can do more risks, do more games more quickly, and do stuff that is more creative and not just keep to the safe stuff and do stuff that is more experimental. So one of the big problems is that there's a transaction timeline going all the way from the clients buying games all the way to the developer. It can take a lot of time, and there's a lot of middlemen, a lot of wire transfers, and this can actually eat into the VR developer's budget. Especially if we have something like here, the payment distribution. In a normal sample game, less than 50% of the game development goes into the actual game. Everything else is either publishing, licensing, marketing, the platform it's going on. So we're trying to look to see if there's some way for this part to have game developers have a better experience and be able to do more experimental things, especially in VR, where we don't have exactly all the paradigms in place, where there's still things are moving. We're still trying to understand how to play the games, how to make games, and all that. So next slide, please. So what is Eumerium in of itself? So Eumerium is a decentralized blockchain in which that what it does is that it's trying to make the system, instead of being proprietary, instead of me going to Steam or instead of me going to a specific place, I buy a license to play that game, then I can only play that game on that license. And if there is an incentivization program, I can only use whatever I get incentives, I can only use it in that platform. So the best way I like to explain it is kind of like Chuck E. Cheese tickets. You go play to the arcade, you get tokens, you pay, you get tickets. And once you get tickets, you can only use those tickets at Chuck E. Cheese's. What we're trying to do is, what if we can make that ticket be decentralized? Nobody controls that ticket. So that way, now across different platforms, people can enjoy these rewards. So a good idea would be, for example, if somebody goes to a VR arcade, wins a tournament, for example, and you give them these tokens, they can use that token to either discount and play a game. They can do it to, if you have a VR cafe, buy something from the cafe, or they could go into an online platform and buy a game off Steam. So they can do all these different things, and this is very dependent on what we decide to do this blockchain on. If you notice, so there is a direct line between the game developer and the gamers or influencers. And you see here Subdream Studios and VR Plus. What is very important to notice about this is that while those are our names and we are the first ones to use this platform, this infrastructure, that is not proprietary and it is not just us. If you don't like our platform, since the blockchain is decentralized, you can make your own platform and decide, I just want to use Eumerium blockchain and use all the features that come with it, but I just want to make my own platform. Or I don't like the VR Plus offline platform, I just want to make my own offline platform and then use Eumerium as a backend. So that's important. Next slide. So what are some good things about the VR offline platform case study? So there is the player identity. So if a player comes in and has information, they can actually go to different arcades or even take their arcade persona into the in-home or go in-home into the arcade. So it pretty much makes some kind of identity identifier that you can go through all these different platforms to be able to still have all the same things. It increases retention. One of the things that we're doing right now at VR Plus, we already started throwing out Eumerium, is creating a system in which we have weekly or monthly tournaments. And then when you come in, the winner of said tournament gets these tokens, which then they can use for either discounts or do stuff. And we have an online store that you can use those Eumerium tokens. So a really important thing about this for us is trying to diversify the value of the Eumerium token so you can use it at different places, and that way more people are more interested in collecting these tokens and using these tokens. And of course, since it's decentralized, it can be used at multiple places and online. So for us, we think that it's very important to have the whole gaming industry and VR industry grow as a whole. We're not looking here to make our system the only system and make a monopoly. We're trying to make it easier for everyone to be attached to a open source system. And all the code is going to be on GitHub, and we're going to try to work with SDKs to make it better for developers as well to integrate our systems. Next slide. So this is, for example, one of our VR arcades, our VR Plus arcade. And so what we have is here, actually, this is not one of our VR arcades. This is one that we're partnering with, that they're going to be using Eumerium to buy, be able to buy drinks or anything, or just go to the cafe, internet cafe, and be able to use their Eumerium after they've gone to play in our arcades. Next slide. So that's all the time I have. If you have any more nitty-gritty questions or anything, I had really small amount of time, so I wasn't able to go too into depth. You can ask me any questions right now after the talk, or if you want to just email me at fmartin@subdreamstudios.com, then you're more than welcome to. Thank you for your time.